10 seconds. When this goes live here. Yes. All right. Hello and welcome to Hemp Your Health. I'm Christy Thiel, Director of Education at Seed to System and your host. Hemp Your Health is an educational and informational show. I am not a medical expert, so everything I talk about is not meant to treat or diagnose an illness. However, we do bring on experts that share their expertise, their wisdom, and experience for the betterment of humans, animals, plants, and the planet. And the intention of today's show is really important. We're here to align. We're here to recognize and reveal that we're all in the same boat. We live in the United States of anxiety. We all have stress and fears and traumas, and we're going to figure out with our incredibly well-rounded guest today some solutions and just take one step out of that isolation that you may feel and to build and connect to your community and some help. So this is really important to me. I hope it's really important to you. I hope you can share this video with as many people as you possibly know, because we all need solutions. Which brings us to the very moment where I get to introduce our incredible, well-rounded guest, Cam Gentry. Cam Gentry.
Hello.
Hi, Cam. I say that Cam is not only our guest, she is a very good friend. And it means so much to me when my friends come on because she's brilliant and she's got so much to share. Let me go through some of her accolades really quick. Cam is a certified trauma professional through the International Association of Trauma Professionals, or IATP. She is an integrated medicine. She's integrated medicine for mental health, a health and wellness coach, self-esteem and development coach for adults and children, and an integrative life coach. Cam has spent several years working and volunteering with law enforcement, where she managed the victims response team and their processes and personnel. She provided direct services and support for crime victims and their families. She is a nationally registered EMT. And Cam is also, if I say this wrong, please correct me, certified in auricular therapy.
That's right. You got it.
As a lot of you know, some words are harder for me to say than others. And that is, auricular therapy is ear seeding, and we'll get into that. Cam is married. She has 2 grown children and lives in Fort Collins, Colorado. Welcome, Cam.
Thank you for having me.
You are so welcome. So you have a wealth of experience and expertise here. I want to dig right in because this topic of trauma goes so deep. It's not just what we're experiencing now, it's everything sort of up to now and the deep layers that we kind of don't even maybe know about. So do you want to kick us off with what is trauma?
Yeah, again, thank you so much for having me, Christy. I'm grateful to be here. Trauma is really anything that you feel like you don't have a control over or choice over. One of the things that I always say is that no one escapes trauma in this world. We all experience trauma. It can be something that you directly happens to you. It can be something that you witness. It can be a big main event, like a car accident or domestic violence, or it can be an illness that you have or a close family member has. It can be a death. It can be also lots of little things. So we sometimes say big T, you know, some they're big T traumas, and then there's little things. There can be several little things that that you witness or that you experience. I mean, it can even be media, watching the news can often cause us trauma, and things that we hear about. And you can be a bystander and witness a car accident that's really disastrous or hard. And it can be a lot of little things that kind of layer on, and then finally, it's just that one, that sometimes it's that final one small thing that you think, why did I don't know why I'm responding this way, because that wasn't that big of a deal. But when it's in combination with all the other things that you're holding or that you've witnessed or that you've experienced, it can be sort of that final straw.
So what are some of those responses? Is trauma sort of like the tipping point? And before we get to that tipping point, which maybe we're defining as trauma, are there stressors, anxieties, depressions? Like what sort of leads to the accumulation of trauma?
Yeah, there's a lot of different things, because that's a great question. So the thing about trauma is that it affects us in so many different ways. It can affect you physically, mentally, emotionally, cognitively. It can affect you in so many different ways, and also it depends on like how resilient you are during, like, what is your resilience? Certainly like everyone has different resiliency factors. Age can be a issue, like how young or how old you are, the repetition of the exposure of your traumas, or how soon another trauma or another thing happened to you, the intensity of the event. One of the things that I always ask people about is like, tell me about your life, and what was going on for you before the thing that you feel like that was the final thing, or why you're here with me. And what's really interesting is that it's I find that if they're exhausted, if they're nutritionally depleted, if they're dehydrated, if they are tired, if they haven't been sleeping, all of those things, that happen, and that I could say is traumatic, just experiencing those things. But then when you have another event or a pandemic, or someone in your family close to you dies, or we watch the news and the world just feels hard. Yeah. That can be you just want to sort of sit back in your couch and go, okay, what's next? And we wait for that sort of next shoe to drop, the next thing to, and we sort of can feel that defeat and give up and just say, I don't have control over anything. You can feel that way, but that is not true.
I was really surprised by this, and I don't know why, because I've shared it with a few people and they've all been like, no duh, but I think sometimes when you really hear how traumatized we are as a society, as a nation, as individuals, as communities, as families, this should really hit home, in that depression will become the number one disability worldwide within the next few years. How the heck do we how do we reverse that? Disability seems like a really big word to me. Like, you can't go to work, you can't earn a living, you probably can't take care of your family, you might not be able to take your kids to school because you're having a panic attack, even though you're saying this isn't real, it's still happening. Number one disability, what are some of the tools you use when someone comes to you with severe depression?
So one of the things about it is awareness is the first step, right? And disability, people can function in disability, right? And there are a lot of people right now that are walking around, and they are experiencing trauma. They are experiencing anxiety and depression and all of the dysregulation that trauma brings. And so you can be functioning very, very well on the outside and not be functioning very well on the inside. And so one of the things about that is that, just understanding that we're all walking around with a story. We're all walking around with our own set of stories and experiences. And just because you look normal or good or you put a smile on doesn't mean that people aren't struggling and they aren't worried about all kinds of things. And so yes, it is and has been, I would submit it has been an issue for a very long time. And I am so glad to be part of the destigmatizing of mental wellness and that we all are experiencing it and will experience it, and it's normal. And sometimes our experiences are absolutely normal responses to abnormal situations. And so to just give yourself a little bit of a breathing room around some of that. But again, understanding that we all, nobody escapes it. We all are going to go through some sort of trauma. And whether that leads to, a disability, disabling depression or anxiety or whatever is really, there are so many resources, and so the awareness now is getting, just because we're talking about it, getting so big. And so some of the things that I do, again, awareness is the first step. And I think that talking about it, telling your story, being able to name your feelings. I always say to people, when we're growing up in some of the generations that we're only allowed like 5 emotions. You are allowed to be frustrated, happy, sad, mad or angry, and, maybe one other, but those are your 5 emotions, but you're only allowed to present or to show the happy and, maybe frustrated ones. And the other ones, no, you're going to get punished for them. You're not allowed to experience them. Certainly don't bring them to work and all of that. And so, but what's true is there's we all feel tons of different emotions and things. And we should be able to start naming it, and you aren't I have people that come in and say, you know what, I am angry. I am an angry woman. Well, actually, you're not an angry woman. You feel anger, and that's totally normal based on whatever you're going through. But that is not who you are, right? We're not going to identify ourselves as that. We definitely have a right to feel all the things. And also fear is, anger is a sort of, especially for our male population too, is a normal response. But what's really under anger is fear and frustration and sadness and a feeling like they don't, we don't have control or choice. And so one of the very first things that I do is to just have people state what they're thinking and feeling. And sometimes that's the first time that they really been able to name it and say it.
When someone does that, you keep bringing up the word control, and sometimes to me the word control is it's like control. Ooh, there's almost like this reaction to that. But can you explain control? Like these people feel out of control because maybe they're just playing this fear or stress or sadness or anger over and over again. And so does this control that you're talking about give them a sense of security and stability? Are they out of control?
That's great. That's a good question. So I think sometimes control and choice are interchangeable, right? So what do you have control over? Which means, what do you have choice over? What choices can you make right now for yourself, for on your own behalf? What do you have control of? I know I had a lot of people that came into me during the election and they were frustrated about one thing or the other. And I would just remind them, okay, so what about that do you have control over? What do you have control over? Well, you can vote, and you can have a voice. You those are the things that you have choice and control over. And sometimes when things feel so out of your control, you have to bring your attention and your focus and your lens in to what it is that you do have control over.
Wow. Okay. Thank you. And I do think like I definitely feel better in my body when I have control over, all right, am I going to go down this path of, crazy emotions? Or am I going to, kind of maybe give a word to it and go, this is how I'm feeling. This is not who I am. This gives me control. I get acknowledged in that moment. And maybe it's fleeting versus, super identifying and locking on to that, and
Right.
making
Locking on what you don't have control over, right? Because that feels really scary.
Yes, and then it's hard to shift without someone like you that can be like, you're in lockdown mode. And then with your tools and your words and your expertise, shift me out of that so that I can go, wow, I haven't even been breathing. I've been so
Right.
locked.
Also, what's really what you said even about my credentials, I take a whole person approach, right? So if you're not sleeping, if you're not nutritionally supporting yourself, if you're not, breathing, when we're stressed and anxious, we breathe in our upper chest, and so just being aware of, taking a belly breath, taking a nice deep belly breath, filling up your body with oxygen so that your brain can think. Just I always remind people that your bandwidth is very small when you haven't been sleeping, when you're not taking care of yourself as a whole person. And so just reminding people, how are you eating? How are you sleeping? How are you hydrating? Those things to support yourself in all ways are really important to remind people as and as well then giving them tools like box breathing or triangle breathing or the pelvic floor release, so that you can respond in a relaxed body, so that your nervous system isn't in that fight, flight, freeze pattern all the time, and you can kind of go back to that rest and digest state.
Oh, that reminds me, I was talking to someone the other day and they explained like this box, this space of health. And when we have like a nice gap here, like the stressors, you have resilience to, because we're not going to get rid of stress. But like you were saying, when we find that we don't have control, this box starts to shrink. And when the stressors are like above the line or below the line, this is aging, this is illness, this is depression, this is anxiety, this is trauma. And so one of the things that you've taught me about is how you use CBD in your practice. How do you use CBD in your practice? How does it contribute to this versus this?
So the clients that I have that are on CBD, whether it's by a recommendation that I've done or that, oftentimes people come to me and they're already doing everything that they can that way. And so I do. So CBD is an anti-inflammatory, and what we know about trauma and stress and toxic stress is that it causes inflammation in the body, and inflammation in the body causes disease, and so dis-ease and disease, and so inflammation, in the body. There's definitely, I don't want to get too deep, and I know I could talk about this forever, but the gut brain, your gut brain is your second brain, they say. So that it's directly related to, that gut microbiome is directly related to your nervous system and to your brain and how you respond and how your body responds, and all of that. So we know that what we put into our body and how we nutritionally support ourselves has a huge impact on our mental wellness. And so, you know, CBD is a natural anti-inflammatory, and so it can help with insomnia. It can help with inflammation in your body. When you have toxic stress and chronic trauma, your body is inflamed. And so you feel, many people that I see them for ear seeding. They come in because they have pain, or they have migraines, or they have, you know, they're not sleeping, or they come in they have back pain. And I want people to understand that many times those physical symptoms go hand in hand with your mental wellness, right? If you are chronically ill, or have chronic pain, or constantly worried about if you're going to get a migraine, or is something going to trigger, you know, some sort of physical response in you, your body is holding, and your body is affected by the inflammation, and by that holding and not breathing and not allowing, and by the trauma. And so CBD does help with sleep. It does help with inflammation. It helps with just, you know, so many things. It restores balance in bodies and homeostasis. One of the things that I also love about it for people is that, you know, and I am not a medical doctor, and I always refer to naturopaths, and I have a psych nurse practitioner that I refer and work closely with, and so I always have, you know, I have them. I work in conjunction with medical professionals, but I, you know, there's the side effects of CBD versus the side effects of going on an antidepressant and not to say that some people definitely benefit and need to be on some of those things. But if you're talking about side effects and you know, the different things that prescription drugs do, and you know, really sometimes are a barrier to people getting help, besides sometimes the stigma of people being on an antidepressant and not wanting that on their you know, in their medical records, or you know, when they go to get life insurance and they have to explain, why are you on an antidepressant, and you know, all of that. So it's, I mean, and I know that that's true because people talk to me about those things, and they don't want to go on things because they don't want to have to go through that, you know, that checks and balances, you know, kind of thing that sometimes happens before you get that right dose, or that you go in that sweet spot of even your thyroid medicine. You know, definitely there's a balancing game that happens with that. And so, you know, I am all about natural remedies first. I think that if you can do natural remedies, your body is made to heal itself. And what we just need to do is help it to do that in the best way. And I would submit in the most natural way possible, with nutritional support, with, you know, supplement support, and with nature, and with other different modalities, body work, stretching, yoga, bright breathing, mindfulness, all the things.
Oh yeah, being around other people. You reminded me of something. I heard this analogy recently, and I was like, oh my God, this is so perfect. Well, we know that, like you were explaining, that the gut and the brain speak the same language. They're connected. They're talking right now. And the analogy I heard recently was the gut and the brain are like two 16-year-old girls who can't hang up the phone. They're just talking nonstop. And they're you know, they affect one another. If they're in a good mood, everything is good. If they're bitching and complaining, you know, so they are best friends.
Yes.
And you have got to support your best friends. And we don't want to do that by toxifying and over medicating and even over numbing, like you were talking about. earlier. I love that your approach is how, like anxiety, depression, overwhelm, trauma, they're depleting because they're inflammatory. So why not put in what the body's depleted of versus depleting it and masking it and toxifying it even more? And if that's still necessary, great. Maybe it can be a short-term thing versus a long-term thing, and treating all these symptoms like a one size fits all, which isn't really, like
Right.
what you were explaining, how we get here. We didn't all get here the same way. Even though we're here together, it's not one experience or the same experience that got us in this anxious, depressed, overwhelmed, sleep deprived state. But we
Right.
can all probably work on our nutrition. Who doesn't need a little, you know, adrenal support
Right.
or
And one of the things about that, Christy, too, is that, when we are in toxic stress or trauma, we're in that fight, flight, freeze pattern, which is what our body is, that's our sympathetic nervous system, and it's made for that, right? It's made to keep us safe and to get us out of danger and to keep us safe. But what happens is we dump, cortisol, which is a stress hormone, and that's great, and that again, and adrenaline, all those stress hormones help us. But when we are in that constant sympathetic nervous system, that constant space of fight, flight, freeze, then our body is constantly dumping cortisol and adrenaline and those stress hormones, and our adrenals are having to deal with that. And then pretty soon they're like, wait, we can't, hold on. You haven't gone back into the rest and digest, back into your parasympathetic state where I can take a breather and relax and deal with this. And so they get burnt out, right? So I mean, it's that, that which came first, the chicken or the egg thing. It's a cycle that our body is just trying to keep up and trying to deal with, and it just needs a break. And so I often see people that are, they wake, when I ask them about their sleep, they say they sleep, but they wake up wired and tired. They wake up just, exhausted still. They're not getting that rest. They're waiting and they're scanning all the time, for their bodies are scanning and waiting and have an ear out. I work with a lot of first responders, and they're, of course, they're always listening for tones. They're always listening for that page out. And so they're not allowing their bodies to actually go back into that safety, rest and digest space.
where
And so
we
it's definitely a
repair.
thing.
Too.
Right. Right.
Another thing you were talking about with the high cortisol is it's also immune suppressant. You can't
Yes.
have high cortisol and have a functioning immune system, which is
Right.
stressful too, right? Because
Right.
the immune system's like, hey, let me do my job. But there's so much cortisol, it's like, oh, no, we got to go here first because we're not safe. So after we're safe, we'll actually go back and deal with,
Right.
all the stuff that's getting in through leaky gut and leaky brain and
Right.
the
Right.
stuff that, just the common stuff that our bodies should be capable of handling, but it can't with that high cortisol. What are, so I love that you work with first responders, because I can't think of anyone who sees more traumas, and then deals with more stress in that like alarm state. Um, but let me shift gears real quick. I want to talk about the kids real quick. Um,
Yeah.
because here's some recent statistics. And I like statistics for all the right brain people out there, so that we can, if that's how you trust us, we'll spit them out for you. But we're not left brain people, we'll keep it like the feeling part of it too. So we got both.
The creative, yeah.
Yeah, the creative part. So the children, suicide is up by 30% in pediatrics in children. And depending on the state, the suicide rate is between 20 and 50%. You don't get to suicide because you're just anxious. Are there unresolved issues that are accumulating in children that we could be addressing, recognizing, sending them to talk to someone like you? What's some advice that you have for children and parents that are like, I've never seen my child act like this. They're so removed, they're so overwhelmed, their behavior is out of control, they're not learning. No, and I'm not an expert. I'm just taking a stab at it. But
Yeah.
what do you see in your
Yeah, it's there's so many different things about that. Children, the thing about children is that we try and protect them from, things, but children want to know the end of the story, right? And they will make up the end of the story. And so it's so imperative to understand that we need to talk to our kids age appropriately, because they're making up what they think, if we're not helping them to process their thoughts and feelings. If they hear something on the news, or if they hear their parents fighting, or if they are bullied at school or whatever, they're going to make up, because they want to complete that thought. They want to complete the thought. They want to complete the circle, right? So here's what they've experienced, and then here's the meaning that they've made of it. If you're not going to help them to make the meaning, or to help them close that circle. And so it's really important that we understand that we think that we're protecting our kids by shielding them and not talking to them about things that are hard. But kids we need to talk to them. We need to allow for their feelings. We need to help them name their feelings. We need to give them space to be kids. And in this very, very adult world that we're in right now, and they don't know sometimes they know that they're feeling it. Their bodies are dysregulated. They're feeling all the things, but they don't know how to name it. They don't know how to, and so they need connection. Right now, they're so not connected through their screens. And I know I am not judging that this is the way that it has had to be. But we need to find ways that we can connect into our children and allow them to be safe with their feelings. Also know that they're watching you all the time. They're watching people, their role models, athletes, whatever you have on TV, they're hearing it, they're paying attention to it, and they don't, in their child nervous systems, their child brains, their prefrontal cortex, their thinking and logic brains aren't developed yet, even until they're like 25 years old sometimes. And so they're not able to put the pieces together like we can. And so they're thinking in their emotional brains a lot. They're emotion centered, and understanding that they're feeling all of their things, but they may not be able to say it or know it, how to say it. And they need connections. They need to be connected, either to you or to friends or to family in some way. It's so important. And also, Christy, what we now know is that, trauma is intergenerational, that we and our children are dealing with traumas that we don't even know we are aware of. And so they're watching you. If you're not able to name and deal and feel with your with your feelings and with your things and your traumas and your emotions, then certainly we can't expect our children to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And so it's really important.
And I need to, you do nutrition. I want to do a shout out real quick to nutrition to the parents. It's probably very easy to keep sugar in their systems because that's what they're craving, and we crave what we eat. But it is depleting. Sugar creates a lot of anxiousness in the body because it's so addictive. And long-term effects of sugar can be very debilitating, very depleting, very stressful. So is food sometimes traumatizing if it's too toxic, processed?
Food is so important. And that, again, I was talking about, the cortisol makes us crave carbohydrates. That is just what, that is one of the things that happens in our bodies when we have a, high stress cortisol dump. We crave carbohydrates. And we can, I want people to understand that there's good carbs, there's good sugars, there are good things that you can put in your body. But yes, toxic things, sugar and soda and all of those things create inflammation, and they don't help us to think clearly. Our body is trying to deal with that toxic substance, and it isn't helping our brain to really be fully optimized, and our body. I used to coach a swim team with my husband for 12 years, and we had donut days, and we did that, but we really tried to stress the importance of what you put in your body and how you perform after. So we had I'm just going to tell this little story. We had a day where we brought donuts in. Everybody had a donut, and then we had them swim their set, and then we had them tell us, how did you feel? And immediately they were like, oh, it was awesome. I could, that sugar rush and whatever. But then we had them tell us how they felt after practice. Well, they all went home and crashed. They all went home and napped and were worthless. And then we brought in apples and peanut butter the next day and had them do apples and peanut butter, had them swim their set, same exact set, had them tell us how they felt good, because peanut butter has got sugar in it. Apples have natural sugars. They felt good. What did you do afterwards? Tell us, how about the rest of your day? They were productive. They, met with friends. They did, they felt good, whatever. And it was such a great thing to do with 160 kids that, what you eat and how you feel has a huge impact on your day and on your week and on your sleep and on your activities. And just,
Right?
putting that together. Yes.
I love that because they speak the same language. And we were talking earlier, and I know we got to wrap this up soon.
I'm sorry.
No, I love this. You and we should just do this in person. So stop the Zoom, we can still keep going. My point is to what you were saying is that if we can repair faster than we injure, here's repair, here's injure. If we are injuring ourselves with food and sugar and toxins, then we are closing that gap and all those stressors are going to bottom us out. But if we're doing little things to repair more than we're injuring, our body, like you were saying, is going to course correct within hours, days, weeks, months. It's made that way, like you were explaining, but you can't injure more than you're repairing. You've got to repair more than you're injuring. And I think simple things like food and sleep and sunshine and exercise and get your butt up off the chair and away from the screen. These aren't big asks, but they can really move the needle on repair.
Right. The three things that I ask of all my clients is to hydrate, because dehydration is a cause of many, many things, and hydration is a cure for many, many things. So I ask them to hydrate more than they think they need. And especially with masks right now, it is so hard to make sure that you're getting optimally hydrated, but to make that be top of mind. Hydration and nutrition, sleep is where we repair and heal and recharge and regenerate. And if you are not sleeping, we need to address it, because it is a huge piece of mental wellness, of physical wellness, of all things. And then movement. And movement isn't necessarily exercise. It can be stretching. It can be yoga. It can be walking outside. It can be having your feet on the earth. It can be just, just moving, swaying, dancing. It can be anything, but not being sedentary for long periods of time in front of a, computer or on a couch or at a desk, because sedentary, movement makes body flow, movement makes blood flow, movement, aligns us again. And so when I say movement, I really mean exercise is great, and I'm all for exercising, but not everyone have that, that drive or that desire. But stretching, somatic experiences is somatically not allowing your trauma to live in your body, to land in your major muscle groups, to be held in your body, to just be mindful of dropping your shoulders, relaxing your jaw, releasing, and doing some releasing exercises. It's just so important.
And the exercise actually also is a way for us to feed our endocannabinoid system.
Yes, it's bliss.
It's bliss, exactly. And I love that it doesn't have to be like the structured exercise. I need to go to a class or a run or a 30-mile bike ride, or Lord knows what it is, but it can just be movement.
Yes.
And it's so nice because we can all move. And if you can't, you can do little arm circles or just something where you're, like you were saying, the lymphatic system, because stagnation does not contribute to well-being. It's stagnant. And it doesn't move stuff out or out of the body or into our cells like we need. All right, I have like 3 more questions, but I think that we should address ocular therapy.
Auricular therapy.
I tried. I hadn't been practicing. Auricular therapy or ear seeding. What is it? Why does it work? If obviously that's something you probably have to be in person for, but for your other therapies, can you see people remotely?
I do see people virtually and remotely. I have people in Vegas. I have people in California that I see and support. And so, yes, I can do remote work. And I have an office here in Fort Collins. So auricular therapy is, and you can do auricular therapy on your own. You can massage your own ears, but I use ear seeds and ear acupressure. So I have these little, these are crystals, but we have them for stainless steel for men. As I said, I see a lot of first responders, and they all have little ear pellets, stainless steel ear pellets in, and there's gold ones too, so that we can do it discreetly, or you can bling out. I love bling, as everyone that knows me knows. I'm a bling girl. So, but your ear is a microsystem for your whole body. So everything that's in your body is represented in your ear. So your eyes, your skin, your brain, your organs, everything that is in your body is represented in your ear. So it's like an ear crystal ball. So I look in your ear and I can see different things. I can see if you're having back pain. I can see if you have hemorrhoids. I can see if you have stomach issues. I can see if you're clenching your jaw. People are just always like, I cannot believe all the things that you just saw, and that you were so right on. But so then we put a little pellet on those acupressure on those points in your ear. They stay on 5 to 7 days. The thing about it is that it is amazing. It is directly connected to your nervous system. And so it immediately calms your nervous system. That's the very first thing that people say. I always just say, just notice what you notice. Notice how you feel before we do it. And I'm going to have you check in after we're done seating you and tell me what you notice. And almost always people are like, I am so calm right now. Like, I just feel like I can take a breath. And and for the first time, when you have been dysregulated, or you have been in a state of fight, flight, freeze, or when you have been holding very tightly, to just feel like you can relax and just take a breath for a moment, It's an amazing thing. The thing about it is not needles. There's no blood. There's no pain. Sometimes they get a little bit sensitive at different places, but not always and not on everybody, and it goes away. You can sleep, and they stay on 5 to 7 days, and then we reevaluate and reseed if we need to. It's amazing for kids. It works so well for PTSD, depression, anxiety, and all kinds of pain, neuropathies, inflammation, all kinds of different things. And so it's been such an amazing tool that I use in my practice.
I actually need to come see you and experience that, because so revealing, isn't it? That you can tell so much.
Yes.
And it just goes to show that the human body is so dynamic, and that we have so many tools literally at our fingertips within your community. Pick up the phone, etc., to start repairing more than we're injuring. One quick question, if you have a moment, from Kim. IV hydration is becoming really popular. Is this a good idea? Do you think it's a good idea?
I do think that it is a great tool. I think that, again, like I said, we are all so dehydrated, and I think that it is a really great tool. I think also there's vitamins that they can do, like the Myers cocktail in some of them. There's all kinds of really good things about that. And so if you're not afraid of needles and you have the time and the money to do that, I do think that giving yourself, listen, I think that if it works for you, if you are doing something to support yourself in a natural, nutritional way, I just don't think that you can say that there's a bad thing in any of that. Like, I think that our body is made to heal itself, but also we need to help support in ways. And if you can do it in natural ways over medicines and prescription drugs, I think that that's a great thing.
I do too, and I'm sure all of you have heard me say this before. We are not deficient in prescription drugs. And so we need to fix those deficiencies and those imbalances, and get a healthy endocannabinoid system, a healthy gut, healthy brain, healthy nervous system, instead of masking and band-aiding these symptoms. Last two things, and we'll wrap it up. We need your contact information for people who want to get a hold of you, work with you, your website. And then can you end on the note, what do you mean by the body's always keeping score?
Okay, so first, my contact information. I have an office in Fort Collins. You can find me. I have a website, nocotraumasolutions.com. So that's NOCO traumasolutions.com. And you can also, I'm NoCo Trauma Solutions at Gmail. And my number is 970-231-5932. And you can text me, you can call me, and I would love to connect in all ways. I love to connect with like-minded people, and I love to be a resource and support. So that's that. And then what I mean by the body keeps the score is that you cannot, your body is responding. You cannot experience life without it affecting your body. You are going to either, it's going to be held in your body. Your memories get held in your body. It affects your whole system, everything that you do, nutritionally, mentally, physically, everything you do affects your whole person. And so if you have unresolved trauma, if you have unresolved stuff, it's being stored in your body, and it's going to start causing disease. It's going to start causing things, and it'll start by little nudges, right? It's gonna say you have a headache, or your gut is, you're having IBS, you have diarrhea or constipation, you have constant stomach ache, you're always having headaches, you're clenching your jaw, your muscles are tense, your joints are tight, you're feeling sick all the time, you're exhausted. You pay attention. Like that awareness is the first step, and your body is talking to you, and so you have to pay attention to what it's telling you.
Wow, thank you. That's a perfect way to end, because our intention today was to align us, to bring us out of isolation and back into touch and community and safety. And so paying attention and that awareness, number one thing. Breathe today, get up, enjoy, find stuff that you have control over. It takes as much energy to have a good day as it does to have a bad day, and you can control that. If you can't, you choose. Get a hold of Cam and or a friend or someone that you trust, and start talking about your feelings, because if you don't, they're going to start isolating you on the inside, and that, again, does not lead to something good. Cam, well,
thank you.
Thank you so much. I get emotional about this because I believe that we can heal. I think we have to do it together. I think that this conversation is pivotal. I think if you can share this, if you can reach out to Cam, share her contact information, know that you can make different decisions and help the kids. Help our kids.
Yes. Thank you guys so much. So much. Go out and be grateful and do something fun and joyful.
Yes. And go Hemp Your Health. We will see you next week. Thank you for joining us. Mwah.
Thank you. Mwah.